my God, we're live. It's Friday. It is office hours with everyone's favorite ludonarrative dissonance professor, Donald Schepis, our Jedi Master Spreadsheets. Welcome, Donald.
Hello, folks. It's good to be here.
Man, it's been a hot minute.
Tenuously rest.
Right.
And I was like, who's going next?
Right. Well, I mean, the Design Corner fans are like outraged that we haven't had Design Corner. They're like, you need Donald back on stream. So we're going to put Donald back on stream. And here he is today. So Donald, let's start with like the easy ones. Where'd you grow up, sir?
So I'm a Navy brat. So I grew up all over. But the line, right? If we imagine the Indiana Jones travel map. So I'm born in Naples, Italy, specifically Pelosi, which is was the military base there. Which gave me no end of trouble when I went to do TSA pre-check last week. And my wife, who just has a regular birth certificate versus my consular of birth abroad, was like, okay, we got like 3 other levels of scrutiny we have to go through. But so it's from Naples to very briefly as a young kid in Krakow with my mom. And then finally, because also my mother from Poland married a Navy sailor right after the Cold War. So there was a whole like them getting married was difficult enough. So from there, it's Maine to be at the Navy base there. Well, my dad was a submariner, down to Virginia, then over to Puget Sound Naval Base in Washington State and Seattle for a few years. And these are all generally 4-year increments. And then he got out of being a submariner into a recruiter in Chicago, Illinois, or technically the suburbs outside of it. Then Connecticut, then North Carolina, and then I moved to Arizona for college.
That is fantastically
East Coast, West Coast.
That is all over the place. So I don't know the details, but like, can you, because you were born in Napoli, can you get Italian passport, or is it all like the government?
So that's long since sailed. Theoretically, there was a point in my life that I think petered out somewhere in my late teens, where I could have tried to get an Italian citizenship because I was born in Pelosi, and then a Polish citizenship because my mother was and still is a Polish citizen, and then also have my regular American citizenship. But the Italian and Polish citizenships did not come up enough to be worth pursuing.
Right. There was a program briefly that was like the Spanish government and the Portuguese government were offering like citizenship if you could prove that you were part of like the diaspora during like the 1500s. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm sure I could find someone in the woodpile that is part of that. It's like I've done some of the background, like, you know, but the like the window closed. It would be like you have to like hire a local attorney in Spain. I'm like, oh, that's just something.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, wait a minute. I could live and work in the EU, and oh man, that'd be fun. So I regret it a little bit not doing it, but I mean, I like America. Colorado's great, but you know, it'd be fun to like retire in Italy. Oh my God,
oh yeah,
that'd be fun.
Well, my wife and I, because my wife works in video games, and back when I worked in video games, and probably will again one day in the future, some years down the line. We've often talked about trying to go and work at a studio in the UK, or, you know, Poland's actually fairly easy because they've got the CD Red folks out there, and they're a very big company. And then there's just studios all over. So we at some point want to go and work somewhere in Europe.
That'd be amazing. So so speaking of which, like the living all over, what are your favorite foods? Because I mean, we mentioned the Poles with Amy because kolaches. And I'm hungry. So yeah, what if you've lived in all these great places that have much better food than native Arizona? Let's start there. Does native Arizona have a local food? Like Colorado's hard. The only thing Colorado really has, like we have buffalo because like we have like you can get buffalo meat here because there's a lot of buffalo farms, and then like we steal the Hatch green chilies and do a Colorado version called Colorado green chili, and that's kind of the thing. Like if people come here, you feed that to them. So I mean, it's not even like it's like half native because you have to like steal the chilies from New Mexico. So
So as weird as it's going to sound, I think we do really good Tex-Mex here, but it's not really Tex-Mex. It is like Arizona Mex, right? Like the Americanized Mexican food. We also have a lot of great like straight up Mexican food places here. I mean, we're the distinguishment between Arizona and Mexico, environmentally and cuisine wise, is not that significant. Yeah, I think that's really the thing Arizona has. Like when my wife and I got married, my wife's second eldest brother is a big like into barbecuing guy.
Mm.
One of the places that's in like all of the like top 5, top 10 barbecue in America places is a place here called Little Miss Barbecue, and so we went there with like 20 people for the wedding, and it certainly lived up to the hype. But as far as like a lot of local stuff, it's the Mexican food and then kind of the Americanization that I think, if you're going to come to Arizona, that's what you're going to get.
Nice. Okay, so that's good for locals. So then all the abroad stuff. What favorite foods from Italy, Poland? Do you speak any of the languages? In 4 years, it's kind of hard to pick it up, but.
Well, so for the longest time, the only language both my parents shared was Italian, and so there was a point until my early teens where I could fluently understand Italian, and now it's a little harder, but it's still not difficult if somebody's speaking Italian at me, and thus to a lesser degree Spanish, because my dad would always talk with, we had when we were living in Illinois, the people that lived in the apartment below us were from Mexico, and he would carry on whole conversations because languages are so similar. But I was never really fluent for speaking, but understanding I could no problem with Italian. And even now today, I need to get back to. I've tried doing like the online language course stuff, like the Duolingo, but I think I need something a little more traditional to really make it stick. But I do plan at some point, finding a community college that's got teaching Italian, teaching Polish, and getting those two. But cuisine-wise, there's the big boy. My mother was a stay-at-home mom, and so I got a Polish upbringing with all Polish cuisine as far as my home life. So for me, all the Polish foods are kind of the bread and butter. But I'd have to say, probably the thing that kind of makes my heart feel the warmest most is my mother would do, I think technically you call it steak tartare, but we always just called it raw meat. And it's, you just get a nice piece of like sirloin or something, pour some boiling water over it just to make sure it's clean. You grind it up. You get a egg yolk in the middle, some pickles, some onion, salt, pepper, and some nice bread with butter. And then you mix it all together with what's called Maggi, which is, I describe it as, it's like Eastern European soy sauce, basically. But that's kind of like, if there's a dish that's going to bring me back to my childhood, and it's probably still my favorite food to this date, it's going to be what we just always called raw meat.
Oh, it sounds good. Yeah, my grandma's side is like mostly Czech, but also like Ruthenian. So there's like Polish influence, and they were all like one country at one point, anyways. And stuffed cabbage is the one from that side that is just the there's like 12 different words like galumki, galushki, galomki, like depending on where you're at, and that one's the nostalgic one for me. It's like, the German side does sauerkraut with it, but the grandma side, she did do like a tomato base. So it's like, like a.
So that's what my mom would do, except instead of cabbage, because I didn't like cabbage, and she's not super into cabbage either. She would do it in stuffed bell peppers.
Yeah.
So it's basically what you would put in guamki with the tomato base, except it's in bell peppers.
That's what I make for my dad. He likes it in the bell peppers too, a little more Southwest flavor, but it's so good. I mean, I know it's about you, not me, but like at one point in time, I had a website. It was called Meat and Bread, and it was just like all of the like proteins wrapped in carbohydrates kind of thing. Just like whether it's a burrito, an enchilada, an empanada, a ravioli. I mean, there's just like it's a cultural meme that is like my favorite food.
Yeah,
and stuffing meat and stuff. It's just good. It's just good.
That's why every culture has it.
Right? Awesome. So so actually it's kind of interesting. Like I think that was one of the first, given your Polish and Italian roots, one of the first projects you worked on with Peg, right? Was the ETU study abroad, where
yes, right,
boom,
there you can see little bite marks maybe on the spine. I would pull it out, but the whole thing collapses when I try and pull from the back ranks. One of our little kitty cats decided that she wanted to chew up that copy. But yeah, so the very first project I kind of brought to completion and ran the campaign for after we did Pathfinder, because on Pathfinder I was just one of the design team. But then I ran the East Texas University Study Abroad whole campaign and everything, and did all of the pledge levels and the graphics and all that kind of stuff. And then I also did a big editing pass on the Poland section. And actually, because my mom helped me a lot, because it was kind of originally very narrow on this one place in Poland, but it didn't kind of give you the whole, what would you get if you were to put everything together in a blender. So I did a bunch of editing there. And my mom really helped me also with a lot of the folklore, finding, really bringing up to the forefront things like Rusalka and a lot of these very traditional kind of scare you, and also pulling a lot of from Slavic paganism, because a lot of that folklore has been kind of modified and the serial numbers filed off to fit when Poland became a very Catholic country. And so you kind of have to do a little bit of digging to actually get in and get some of that original folklore, which just felt super right for study abroad.
Yeah, and that is the best part.
So she's actually credited in the book as a consultant.
That's awesome. You got your mom in a book. So speaking of heritage and family, so you've got you actually have a Colorado connection. You haven't lived in Colorado, but like one of your relatives did some time in Colorado. Let me pull this up because this is
yes.
Tell
so
us
my father,
this family picture right here.
So my father grew up in Colorado. That's where the Italian side came when they went over. And so that gentleman on the left side, Mario Nello Schepis, the only reason I know what he looks like is from those pictures. He is my biological grandfather on my father's side, my paternal grandfather. My dad also had two stepfathers, one of whom was a full-blood Cherokee who flew P-51 Mustangs in World War II.
Oh my God!
But so that's Mario Nello. That's the only reason I know what he looks like is from those photos. And then on the far right are actually it gets a little, because you've got two sets of great grandparents per paternal maternal, but those are Mario Nello's parents on the far right. Very kind of the traditional Italian kind of country folk. And then there in the middle is one of my maternal great grandfathers in Kraków, Poland. The Polish side of my family has been in Kraków for many, many hundreds of years worth of generations, full blood Polish and all that. So that's kind of the two places. And so when my mom was doing a bunch of genealogy research and figuring out where had both of these segments of the family gone apart and come together, I like to joke that for me and my family, World War II was somewhat of a culling period, as Hitler didn't do us any favors on the Polish side, and Mussolini didn't do us any favors on the Italian side, and the family got a lot smaller.
The morbid black sense of humor, which I love. It's amazing. Like I actually love finding the dark horses in the family tree. Everyone's like, I want to find out that I'm related to royalty and and it's like, oh my God, those are all the inbred idiots. Like I love the interesting story. So like, what did Grandpa? What was he getting booked for in the photos? Because he looks very dapper. Like he showed up to get booked.
I don't know what he ultimately. Well, I think I do know. I just don't remember. But he was generally a small-time grifter. He was going around. He didn't live in any one place because he was always keeping ahead of the people that he had just pulled the wool over their eyes. But yeah, that was his thing. Was he was just a small-time grifter. He was running cons and things of that nature, and that's kind of what he got caught for. Whether or not there's more there and to his history, who knows? He was in Colorado, so I very much doubt there's any kind of like, the fun thing would be say, oh, he was some kind of mafioso, but I think he was too far removed from any of those family centers, as well as just not a big enough fish to have any kind of that involvement. So he fit the one Italian American stereotype. Well, I guess he's just straight Italian, just happened to be in America when he did the crimes.
We actually did, like the Small Dones were an Italian crime family in Colorado, and they had a really great restaurant I think Elway's restaurant chain bought them out, or one of the things, but it was Gaetano's, and they had the super authentic antipasto plates where they just bring out a huge platter and just like the cheeses and the olives and the rolls. It's like, I mean, and they the kind of meats you can't get at like Safeway or Kroger's or King Soopers. Like you got to go to an Italian place to really get. And anyways, love them.
One thing the Italians and the Poles agree on is dried meats are the foundation of what you eat.
That's so good, yeah, right? So true. The and I think they kind of got wiped out by the 80s, 90s when they were kind of like the feds were doing a lot of like, in New York, they went after the mafia. So I think they got the Paragon got arrested, and the kids didn't go into the business, and that was kind of the end of the Small Dome Company. But they still had, the restaurant actually was very profitable, so they still had the restaurant for years and years. So it's like you should have just gone into the restaurant business. You don't have to organize crime when we are so food deprived. Having authentic food is good. Let's see other good questions. Let's see.
Funnily enough, I'm also the first person in my entire. I mean, you go far back enough, there weren't university degrees, but of all of my recent relatives, I am the first one to actually get a university education.
Hot damn. Well, congratulations, sir. So yeah, let's talk about that. What did you study? And afterwards, you did a little bit of teaching too. So what did you study? What did you teach? And then how did you find PEG?
So I came out to Arizona because there were about 3 game programs in the United States that had any kind of oomph behind them, right? Basically since I became a teenager, knew I wanted to be a writer and a designer in video games. And as part of that, I was doing some research, and really the 3 programs that were worth anything back in 2013 when I was looking was the Full Sail program in Florida, but not accredited. So I was like, not for me. University of Advancing Technology here in Phoenix, and then DigiPen up in Washington State. And UAT just kind of seemed like the right place. And so I applied, and they had an early acceptance program. So I knew what college I was going to since the sophomore year of high school.
Oh, wow.
I already had pre-acceptance.
That's very much like the Japanese.
I knew what I wanted to do
regularly. So that's cool. That's really cool.
And so I came out to Arizona. I did a 4-year bachelor's in about 2.5 years because it's a year-round program, so you don't do summers off, and got a Bachelor of Arts in game design. Spent the next 3 or 4 years working in mobile games very often. So one of the things that I always say to people that want to work in video games or tabletop games or any kind of games is the difference between the people who were successful and the people who weren't is the people who weren't at some point gave up. They stopped doing it. Either okay, I'm going to put a pause while I go get a regular job to pay the bills, or just giving up entirely. And the thing that's really insidious is that I'm going to put a pause and stop working towards it so I can go get a job that pays the bills. And I was the only person, and I think at this moment, I'm the only person in my entire cadre from that year at the university. Oh, somebody, you don't knock down that poster, Hannibal.
Oh,
I just saw the poster lift off the wall a little bit, and I was like, oh, somebody's being naughty. But I'm the only one that's working in games now of the entire, probably 30 or 40 other designers that graduated in the same class as me. Because when I was working, my first job outside of college was working in the tools department at a Sears in Mesa, Arizona. But I made sure, and it made it very difficult because I always made sure I could work a job, even if it wasn't, what I wanted to do, that gave me Fridays off, because the university had a program called their production studio, which is exactly like working in a real game studio. At the end of a semester, students pitch their games, and based on the class size, the number get selected. And then for the next semester, everybody enrolled in the class spends 10 hours a week working on that game. And so you've got milestones, you've got production constraints, you got everything that you're actually going to have in a real video game studio there in college. And I was also part of a group. We were, by the end of our first year in college, had formed an LLC and were actively selling match 3 games to small businesses here in the Phoenix Valley as part of loyalty reward programs. So the idea was you play the match 3 game a bunch and you get a coupon that says with your next purchase, get a free drink. And so we were having games on the App Store well before we graduated. And so I just stayed involved with that production studio program, got my first real games job off of that, was meeting a client. I ran a team for a year and a half, got up to like 12 or 13 developers, if I remember the number correctly. And then I was kind of in an in-between period after I'd worked with a couple of teams and was between jobs. And the head of the game program reached out and said, hey, we've got a bunch of students and we could use some support on the design side. And it's been, 5 or 6 years since you went here. It's kind of on the lower end that we're comfortable with somebody coming back, but why don't you come in, do a teaching demo, and we'll see, are you, because you don't want somebody to get the degree, come back and immediately start teaching, and there's no actual added experience that they have from their industry. Because that was a big thing at UAT. That's one of the reasons I went there, was all of the instructors in the program had actual experience in the games industry. Well, I came back and did my teaching demo, and one of the design teachers said, I knew you were going to be fine and that we should hire you, because within the first 5 minutes of your teaching demo, not one thing you said was anything we taught you. It was all stuff you had gone out and learned in the industry. So I went from adjunct for a semester or two to teaching full-time very briefly, and then the pandemic happened, and I was the short man on the totem pole. I was the newest person, so I got the downgrade back to adjunct and eventually nothing first. But at that time, I had met, because one of the instructors at the university, Hugh Henry, if you're watching, thanks Hugh, saw that Shane and Simon were looking for somebody to, I think it ended up being not a position that they really had, because I think they wanted somebody to be the line developer for Pathfinder for Savage Worlds. And they kind of put it out there, and then ended up that role doesn't really exist super much when the project launches and starts. But then I get the offer to come on full time on the back of my work for Pathfinder. And then because Mike, I almost said Mark weirdly, Mike is the Pathfinder superstar. So he's now the line developer for that line, and I touch a bunch of different stuff. I also have the fortune/misfortune of being a very competent producer. And so that means that I know how to insert myself into a team and do all the elements of the process that result in a finished product. And I did that in video games, and that's kind of the stuff that we needed here at PEG, which is what made me a good fit.
That is why we have been dubbed the Master Jedi of spreadsheets, is that we've grown to a certain point where, the traditional, like, this can be an email thread. No, it can no longer be an email thread. It needs to be a spreadsheet. And Donald makes super sexy spreadsheets. Not just organized well, but like coded well. So like, the subsequent, like, from tab 1 to tab 10, like you enter the information in one place, it auto-populates. Like it's good stuff.
I learned, especially because there was a period with the university where I'm an alum coming back and doing stuff, and I'm helping the students organize their projects. And I realized, just like how when we're making the games, try and make it as foolproof as possible, make it so that you can't do a thing that's going to break it and make it unfun. You likewise have to do it with your internal documentation. And I've had hundreds of students pound on the spreadsheets I make and try and break them through, just not understanding how it was supposed to work. And I've come on the other side of that crucible with the skills necessary to make spreadsheets fun for everyone.
Especially hiding the cells that Landau would otherwise screw up. Like, just hide those from him, so you cannot see them. You cannot break the formula if you cannot see the formula. It's like, yes, this is wise. This is good. But no, I mean, like for everybody, like it really is an amazing kind of production for a having several main projects running at the same time in various states of completion, having like the early art, the marketing art that's ready for the crowdfunding, and then the art that comes in later, and like all those covers need to be different and changed. Like the feedback process. What was the number on that you guys are crunching through for Ghost Mountain? It's like over 1,000, right? Over 1,000 lines of.
Oh, I think Ghost Mountain was 1,800 individual submissions for the core book.
And it was a great book. I mean, that is not a statement about where Daryl and the crew left it off. Like, it was well polished, and that's a lot of feedback.
Well, and so it's interesting because probably 1,836, and probably a third of those are duplicates. It's something that we've gotten to step one, right? Well, step one was spreadsheets for planning for campaigns to help organize that. And we're locked in. We know how those spreadsheets work. I don't need to do any more work on those. And then step two, and this was inspired by Daryl, because they did a similar thing on Torg, was having the Google survey so people can submit their feedback like that. Because going through the feedback on the forums was just such a monumental process. If we had 23 pages of feedback, it was going to take me a week, maybe two, to get through everything. And, you know, even though people are generally pretty good in our community about checking and making sure there's not duplicates, if there's a post with 40 items, there's going to be some duplicates. And then I'm not going to scan through, understandably so, a 40 item post if I'm a backer. I'm not necessarily going to scan through a 40 item post to post my one piece of feedback, right?
Yeah.
So taking it into the Google Forms has made it a lot easier to call that stuff out, even though we do end up with more duplicates, because it's all line items on a spreadsheet and it's easy to pull out. And now kind of the next thing I need to figure out is how can we display that feedback to everybody while it's being populated, so that way folks can again start checking for duplicates. Because the more efficient we can make the feedback process, the better it is for literally everyone. Nobody suffers from a more efficient feedback process. I have more time, the backers get their stuff faster, the project takes less time. So it's a lot of, but we're kind of in the fine tuning phase. We're not doing a lot of foundational stuff with the feedback process anymore.
So John Doom's got a question about other games.
Hannibal, don't you bite the poster.
He's really doing, you are...
He full on just bit it.
That's a collector's items. This is our dog park hour. So he's like, why are we not at the dog park right now? And I even say dog park.
Oh, poor neglected boy.
Baby. So I'm gonna go let him up. Like while I'm on them, tell us we'll get to John Doom's question in a second. I will take priority for a second. Tell us about the pets, sir. Like you got some really adorable felines, and you're definitely on the cat versus dog thing. So while we're getting, hi.
I do not have any four-legged friends within close proximity. So folks
they always crash. They always crash our other meetings. Like they are notorious for making themselves known.
So this is my mother's favorite photo of Peanut Brittle, who is, if I can get the glare to not be, where's the frame? There we go. So she is a little Siamese tortie who had all of her teeth removed before she came to us in the middle of a yawn, trying to avoid the glare. She's our oldest girl. She is an absolute cuddle bug. She spends about 90% of her time in my wife's lap. And then we have, I should have prepped and found some good photos. This is Honey Lemon. She is
super
another
cute
tortie, and she had the nickname. Oh, there she is. Honey, come here. Nope, she refuses. Like most cats, she had the nickname. Yeah, had the nickname Little Mama in the not shelter, the foster, because she had just had babies, and when we got her, she was like, "I want no more children." Right? I've raised my kittens. Get me the hell out of here. And we got her because our other cat, Tsunami Monsoon, my baby, was 1.5 months old, and we had just gotten her, and we definitely needed somebody else to play with her because she was a little hellion. And then finally, so when my wife and I were getting married, Molly, my wife, we kind of, as a gift to ourselves, were like, we'll get a third cat, because we had Tsunami Monsoon and Honey Lemon. And we're like, well, we're moving into a house now. Let's get a third cat. That'll be kind of our reward to ourselves, or it'll be our wedding present to ourselves. And so we go and we meet Peanut Brittle, because Peanut Brittle was also listed as being a ragdoll. My wife's always wanted a ragdoll, but we don't go to cat breeders. There's enough animals in the shelter system. And so we found this little sweet looking girl. She was, I think Peanut's 11 years old. We go to visit her in the shelter. We meet her. Great. And these two kittens come over and start playing in my lap. And the lady at the shelter is like, oh, those kittens will be adopted. We're doing an adoption event this weekend. They'll be gone when you come back. And so like, okay, we'll take her, just not this week because we've got guests in town and little Suni has anxiety and does not like people. So let's not also add a new cat to the mix. So the week after the wedding, we go back to get Peanut Brittle, and that little black kitten that was definitely going to get adopted was still there. And we were kind of hemming and hawing like, oh, she's sweet, but 4 cats. And then as Molly is filling in the adoption paperwork, this little black kitten crawls up Molly's leg, up Molly's side, and onto Molly's shoulder. And so little Smudge Stick's climbing ability is the reason she came home with us, because she definitely chose us. Aww. But it's fine. The rule is you can't have more pets than you have hands. And so there's 2 of us, and so we've got 4 hands, so 4 cats, we're good to go.
Everybody can get scritches at the same time.
Exactly.
Oh, that is awesome. The pets are the best. And so let's see. Let's do John Doom's question.
Well, we got to get back to John Doom's.
Yeah. So board games. Do you play any? Do you want to try?
Oh, absolutely. So it's more of a party game, but I will include it in this category for the sake of this conversation. But Codenames is probably my favorite board game of all time. If I'm going to a party and I don't know a lot of the people there, I will just bring Codenames and set it up in the middle of the party and just choose people and be like, hey, you come here, you're playing this right now, right? And it's always a hit. So that's probably my favorite board game. I just recently got to finally play the Dune board game, the Gale Force 9 re-release of the Avalon Hill. And spoiler, well, not really a spoiler, but knowing about the Avalon Hill Dune game and bringing it up and talking about it in my kind of first meeting with Shane and Simon, I think was part of the establishing that I knew what I was talking about. So I recently got to play that. So that's kind of been the whale on my list of games I really wanted to play that I haven't had to try. And on Monday, I spent 16 hours playtesting Doomguard, which was a lot of fun. The second time, so the first 3 interactions I had with Shane and Simon, the first one was just meeting them for lunch. The second time, John Wick came down and we played God's War, the Runeterra game, I think it is, with a bunch of folks. And then the third time, I came over for a playtest of Doomguard. And this is in 2020, I want to say. And it's still early days for Doomguard. And it wasn't until earlier this year, late last year, when we started talking about Doomguard coming up in the production cycle, that I learned that it was Mike's game. But so on Monday, Mike flew out for a few days here in Phoenix, and we did a big play test, and it was a lot of fun. And I've said this now multiple times. I have not felt so alive in months as I did playtesting all day, being around a bunch of other designers, talking about the game. Like I often say, and this is what I would tell my students, I don't do this because it's fun or I like it. I do it because it's a compulsion. I don't really have a choice in being a writer and designer. I'm going to do it either way. So I'm just lucky enough that I've managed to make a living at it.
So is there a certain type of character in those games that you play? Because so for instance, when you mentioned Dune, I haven't got I'm an only kid. So board games are just not part of the thing,
Right.
But I love the sound of the mechanic for the Bene Gesserit in that game, where you at the beginning of the game can predict what round the game ends on. Doesn't matter if someone else gets their victory conditions first, you co-op and you get the win. Oh my God, that's brilliant.
Yep.
And Shane has a very certain type of character he picks. There's one in Doomguard that's clearly written for Shane, and you're welcome to spoil it. But is there one like that for you? Do you gravitate to a certain role or a certain character type?
I tend to gravitate towards support roles. So when we were playtesting Doomguard, I basically got the perfect character for me in the first playtest we did, or the first scenario. And I got to play Hex. And she is, one second, I really... there we go. Now I don't sound like I'm slowly dying anymore. So I got to play Hex, who is a great support character. I joked, because there's all these cards that let me do things like say, hey, I did this twice to Daryl. Hey, Daryl, you know how you just took a turn and now it's my turn. Go ahead and take another turn and play all those cards you can only play on your turn as if they were cards that you can play on other people's turns. And we started joking because I would do that 2 or 3 times. And I kind of figured out that when you eventually play Doomguard, assuming the cards haven't changed, because nothing is locked in, but assuming that the cards haven't changed too much, milling through your deck and getting all your really cool support cards back is very effective. And so I was doing that. I was constantly trying to spend as many cards to get as many cards as possible. And I would have 2 or 3 other players take essentially additional turns on my turn. And so we started joking, okay, is Donald's turn done yet? Because now Daryl's gone, and who's playing to my left? Mike's gone, and Jess is gone, right? Everybody else has taken also their turn on Donald's turn. So now we can move on to the next person. Nice. Which I love that stuff. I love being the force multiplier for the other people at the table. Also because, and this is true in role-playing games, and I have to be very careful about this, I am if you could not have told from how I have acquitted myself thus far in this live stream, a very outgoing, very, I'm not afraid to be the one that's talking and taking the attention all the time. But I don't want to do that all the time when we're playing games because other people should have an opportunity to shine. And so I love playing support roles because when I'm doing my thing, I get to just go all the way to the hilt and be exactly like I always am. And then I naturally have an opportunity to pause and let other people kind of take the spotlight and also often thrust them into the spotlight, whether or not they want it, because I'm playing some sort of support role.
Yeah, that's super considerate, super fun. So one more question about Doomguard, because super excited in the chat about Doomguard. Is it a competitive game? Is it a cooperative game? Both? Like when you're giving other players extra turns, is it helping? Like, are you achieving it? It's like everybody versus a big bad, or how does the game work in that regard?
So Doomguard is a cooperative board game. It is. I actually don't know the minimum number. I don't know what's going to go on the box. We played it with 4 and 5 people. And I don't know exactly what the upper and lower bounds are going to be in the final. We didn't really talk about that, but it is a cooperative board game. You are trying to, in the scenarios we played, Jody says, I think too, that sounds right. It would make sense that you could play at least with 2 people. I think was 6 the maximum? I might be wrong on that. But anyway, so it's a cooperative board game. You are, in the scenarios we were playing against eldritch evils. And so we had to deal with all these cultists that were coming around and trying to corrupt these locations. And we're going around Legacy City and trying to prevent things from getting corrupted and turning evil and working against us. Because as more and more of the city gets corrupted, more and more bad things happen to us every turn. And that was, we played through all 3 of the scenarios we played that night were with the eldritch evil. There's a section of the board, I forget the term off the top of my head. I think it's the ultimate evil is the term for it, if I'm remembering correctly. So we played with the eldritch horror. Actually, no, I think, did we talk about that? There's a solo play option. That does sound familiar. Okay, the game's not out. Don't take anything set in stone until we actually release it. So we did that, those scenarios, and it's all, the more you can help your team, the better a time you're going to have. Especially, so at one point I played a speedster character, and I was just running around the board trying to punch stuff and trying to do board management while everybody was dealing with the final villain. So yeah, there's a lot. I'm hesitant to talk too much about it because I don't know. It was a play test, right? So there's a lot of stuff that might change that I'm going to talk about because it was my specific experience. And then people are like, oh, yeah, Clint's saying Doomguard can be played with players. So don't take anything specific. I'm saying the overall gist of Doomguard, right? Your superheroes fighting against some evil that's trying to destroy the city is going to be true. Specifics, not until the stuff's getting printed.
Halfway through the campaign. It's 6 months later. Yes, yeah. Yes, right. Awesome. I'm a little jealous. I haven't gotten to play test Doomguard yet, but I do see all like the people signing up to the email list. So there is an email list. Like, check our news at PEG if you guys want information on when to sign up for Doomguard or when it comes out. There definitely is an email list. But for you, Donald, let's change direction fantastically. What are you reading, binging, Netflixing, podcasts? Like, what other media that's exciting you right now in the world that you're consuming?
So I'm currently trying to get through one of the Eternal Champions books, the Elric book. Well, it's not really it's kind of a book. I think it's technically a collection of short stories. I think I'm reading the fix-up version, where they took the short stories and put them together, and he kind of made them all flow into one another. I'm actually finding it a little bit of a challenging read, not like comprehension-wise, but structure-wise. It's a little weird, and it might be too weird for my tastes, but I'm trying to give it a good test. I just finished reading the very first one where he actually gets I'm forgetting the name of the sword off the top of my head, but I'm gonna try and read 2 or 3 and see how it goes. Just because it's such an iconic example of fantasy from the genre.
Stormbringer.
And Stormbringer. Yeah. So yeah, I'm trying to get through that right now. I just found out that there's a new season of Taskmaster currently airing, so I got to try and figure out how do I watch that. I probably have to get like BritBox or something. If you haven't watched Taskmaster, it is the height of British panel comedy.
I love British shows. They're so good.
It is Taskmaster. If you like British panel shows, Taskmaster is the best of the best of the best. And you can watch a lot of it for free on YouTube. I think the first 12 seasons.
Oh, wow. So I've seen a lot of like TikToks with it. People will post or reels. They'll post it with it. And I was like, what is this show that I keep? And that's the only reason I was like, where can I get more? Because like people just do little cutouts on it. I've never seen a full episode. Though,
not to overly promote a TV show that we don't make, but Google Taskmaster Potato Challenge. They have a video online that is just this one challenge, and it's not the best that they've ever done, but it's everything. Anything that's going to happen in a Taskmaster challenge happens in this one challenge. So if you watch that and you go, nah, this ain't for me,
that's not the
then
show.
Don't watch the show. But if you laugh at that one, you think that's hilarious, you're going to love the show because it only gets better.
Yeah.
And then I'm also working through Shadow and Bone.
Yeah,
Molly and I have to watch, I think, 2 more episodes. We're really enjoying that. And then
are you on the new season, the whole new one, like season 2?
Yeah, the season 2. We've got like 2 more episodes to watch. It is just fantastic. And then we're also playing through because Molly and I sometimes when we don't want to watch something, one of us will run the controller and we'll play through a game. And we are currently playing through the Resident Evil 4 remake, which is creaky. It's a good game. I'm always hypercritical of every game I play, so take everything I say with a I in one meeting I sent the potato clip because I was like, if you like that clip, you're gonna love it. I'm very critical of every game I play ever because I have a difficulty. Like I said, it's a compulsion. It's not something I do willingly. So it's a little creaky, but overall it's been a fun time and a lot spookier than the like 2000s graphics of the original.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of loving this new age of movie quality TV on television or on streaming. It's cool. I mean, it's like kids these days don't remember back when like they didn't really write. Most shows didn't write overarching season stuff. It was always Monster of the Week kind of stuff because there was no way to catch up. If you didn't see it on TV, you had to wait for like the VHS to come out 7 years later. Like there wasn't. And like X-Files was kind of was one of my ones where it's like, I think that was the first one I figured out how to do a DVR before it was DVR. It was like literally you had to tell your VCR, like you had to put in a blank tape and tell it what date and time if you weren't going to be there, and it would automatically turn on. Like that was like high tech. And you lucked out. It was on Fridays, and like when growing up, like there was always school stuff or sports or whatever going on Fridays. It's like I don't want to miss my X-Files, but if they did a Monster of the Week, you were fine. Otherwise it was like a season long. It's like, what happened with Krychek? I don't know. And like, so kids
Stargate was that for me, was, especially Stargate Atlantis, was like I had to be awake at 10 o'clock on a Thursday night, I think it was, getting yelled at by my mom to go to bed so to catch the latest episode and be like, I think the most in trouble I ever got watching that show was I didn't realize how loud the TV was set because the scenes before had been so quiet. And then they do this bagpipe funeral thing. And so it goes from these like sad, somber scenes to, and so the entire house just explodes and wakes everybody up.
Donald! Yes. See, and now everyone's like, streaming stuff and you can watch on your phone with headphones and like, it's a brave new world out there for media consumption, folks. Off topic, Tyler, awesome. Yes, please do put it out. I challenged him on Last Office Hours to actually publish. So I'm happy. I'm happy we made progress on this.
Good.
Yeah, I do need to get a better mic. For some reason, Google Hangouts was being angry at my this. I've got a really good one over here that's not being used right now. Anyways, there's audio issues. We'll fix them. Someone lend our mic. So Jody, we'll get Jody. Has Donald talked about his ink yet? So before we talk about the others, Donald, you have some cool ink. Let me see if I can pop it up on screen.
I have two tattoos. One that I can't show off because it's on my thigh it was my first tattoo. My wife and I went to Tucson and got, I have a little Triceratops and my wife has a Brachiosaurus because those are our favorite dinosaurs. And I have mine on my right hip. Well, not really, more than my thigh. And my wife has theirs on their left leg because we do this thing when we're walking together, we'll bash hips like we're fighting. And so now we make the dinosaurs fight.
Nice.
The tattoo that you popped up.
Whoa, this was like 10 times too cute. Like really, I can hear Jody going, "Aw," right now. Like
so Molly will walk on my right always. It's just how we naturally walk. Aww. And when we were like first tattoos, we would just if we were walking and not saying anything because we didn't have anything to talk about, one of us would just bash their hip into the other. And as a joke, one time I said we should get matching dinosaur tattoos and we make them fight when we bash our hips together. And so now we have the dinosaurs to make them fight.
Oh, Jurassic Love story. I love it. That's awesome. Well, and Molly played a part in this other tattoo too. Yes, a very important part. So in 2006, a video game by the name of Star Wars Republic Commando comes out. And at the time, 12-year-old Donald plays Star Wars Republic Commando. And in a way that he did not with any other piece of Star Wars media, falls completely head over heels in love with Star Wars. And to the point that he is constantly searching online, trying to find out what's the next with Star Wars. And Republic Commando specifically. And, teenage Donald finds the Republic Commando books by Karen Travis and falls in love with those and eventually finds a fan forum for Republic Commando stuff. And it was a combination of, they have behind the scenes that you can unlock in that game, talking about the Foley and the writing and some of the art and the overall design for the game, as well as finding this fan forum and discovering and doing a lot of play-by-post RPGs. Now, I say play-by-post, it was really more collaborative fan fiction because we didn't have, it's not like your typical play-by-post where there's rules that you're using and rolling dice. But that's what made me kind of discover that I was going to make video games and be a writer, and that's what I was going to do for the rest of my life. Cycle forward to, I think I'm in college at this point, and the tabletop group I'm playing with spends 3 years playing the West End game Star Wars system for a Mandalorian game. And I played Teshkar Savarisk, the adopted brother of the 4 Savarisk brothers. And the group whittles down, and my buddy Dave and I, who's playing Darrow, played these 2 characters basically every week for 3 years and spent probably between 10 and 20 hours between every session messaging each other, talking about the various schemes, because it was Sons of Anarchy meets Star Wars. And the game was there was a very brutal GM we had in that period of our playtime together. So we had to constantly be on point, doing the best we can. If we didn't make our payment every month, the Hutts were going to show up and cut off our legs. So
It's my favorite character I've ever played in a RPG. It's very special to my heart. And so when I was getting my first real big tattoo, I got the Republic Commando helmet with the architectural kind of drafting elements because it represents the kind of format and the technical aspect of being a designer, and that it was kind of the blueprint for me going into this industry. And then Molly drew the helmet for Deshkar Savarisk, and the kind of watercolory elements represent the artistry of being a writer. And so it's kind of the thing that put me on the path of being a writer and designer.
I love super thoughtful stuff like that. I mean, yeah, the stories behind it, the significance, the symbolism, like
and it's Molly's art. The tattoo artist did exactly what Molly drew for the red and blue helmet. So.
So good. So good. Nice. Megalodon's a good one. My favorite is the Brontosaurus, which apparently is not a real dinosaur anymore. It has a different name, which I refuse. I refuse to use Alpatosaurus or Allosaurus, whatever the hell they're calling it now. It is a Brontosaurus because that's what it was when I was 6. So that's what it'll be forever. Sorry, Denver History Museum. You changed your sign. I'm not changing. Swear this. It's back?
My Triceratops. Oh, is it back?
It's back. Oh my God, this is great. This is like Pluto. Like Neil deGrasse Tyson is on my list because he's like, it's not a planet, it's a planetoid. I'm like, I don't care. It's a planet when I was 6, so it's a planet forever. There's 9. And he's like, but there's bigger planetoids. They're just like, I don't care. I don't care. So Pluto's a planet, or Neptune, whatever the one he killed. So sad.
Yeah, mine was the Triceratops because that is what the blue Power Ranger had in the original Power Rangers, and I grew up on Power Rangers. Power Rangers is part of what got me into doing martial arts.
Okay, so talk about that. What kind of martial arts do you do?
So when we were about to leave Washington, I did like 2 months of Shotokan karate. So it was technically my first, so I have to mention it, but it wasn't really my first. My first was Sharky's Karate in Naperville, Illinois. Now, if you're familiar with the American Karate Association, if you like Cobra Kai, if you have watched any Power Rangers or any of those kind of the Japanese import shows where they film all the out of suit stuff secondary here in the States, say thank you to Sharky's Karate, because Sharky's Karate is basically the pipeline for do karate here, get really invested, pour your heart into it. And Sensei Sharky still does this. When the kids go to California to go start working in the stunt industry, he will do the drive up with them. And it was a fantastic place. I'm actually going to my wife's cousin is getting married in Illinois, and we're going to be there in a few months. And I'm like, Naperville is like 2 hours out of the way, but it might be worth going. But I got to get kind of a little bit back in shape because I don't want to show up back at the old stomping grounds. The discipline, the perfection of motion, and also I was never super into going to competitions and stuff. I was always super into the discipline, the kind of the fluidity and the motion and the dexterity you get, and then also the self-defense elements. So after we leave Naperville, bounce between every place we went, there was not always a good martial arts place. There was a lot of what I call belt farms teaching Taekwondo, where it's like, this 8-year-old has a black belt. And it's like, that's not real. There are some 8-year-olds that deserve black belts, but not at every single Taekwondo place between Illinois and North Carolina. But the other 2 that I did that were really impressive was in Connecticut. I trained under Sifu Ilya, who is a Russian instructor of praying mantis kung fu. And I'll never forget. So he was in I'm not going to tell too many tales out of school, but he was formerly in the Russian military. And they trained them to do this thing called taking the guard, where you take your arms. I don't know if I can't really do it well in frame, but you basically wrap it around somebody's ankles and you pull, and it causes them to go forward, and because they're not likely not going to catch themselves, hit their head on the ground and knock themselves out. And he said they called this move taking the guard. Once he showed us how to do break falls, he would constantly, when we were doing something else, not paying attention to him, take the guard on us so that we had to use our break fall and not hit the mat hard. And I loved it. He is if I don't remember.
It reminds me of like Peter Sellers when he like Kendo, who's hiding in the closet and randomly attacks him all the time.
Yeah.
Like, your instructor just randomly like, pay attention, take the fall. Oh my god.
Yeah,
that's great.
It was Kung Fu was the perfection of motion stuff that I love was absolutely there with it, and he was just a phenomenal instructor. And then I did. I see Jody said Kamen Rider.
Yeah.
Kamen Rider Dragon something. The guy who plays the white and black Kamen Rider is Matt Mullins. Matt Mullins, you might have also seen if you watch. I think it was IGN did a Machinima series where they did a Mortal Kombat like thing, and he played Johnny Cage in it, and he is a phenomenal martial artist and just a great guy. I love training with him. But anyway, I also did Krav Maga when I was in North Carolina with the woman who is actually, if you're a fan of The West Wing, there is a scene where the president's daughter gets 3 new Secret Service agents, and she is the black lady in that scene. She was in Hollywood for a while doing stunts as well, went to North Carolina, and for a woman who is probably like 6 inches shorter than me, and I in my slight frame probably have 40 pounds on, I have never met anybody that could hit harder than Shannon Marshall. Wow. She ran a program called Pink and Fierce, teaching women self-defense, and Krav Maga is another level. So this tells you everything you need to know about Krav Maga. In Krav Maga, you are trained. The fight ends when the other person is not moving or is running so fast that you cannot catch up, because you do not know what they are going to do. Are they going to pull a weapon? Are they running to go get a gun from their car? Right? Because Krav Maga was originally designed so that all of the Jews in Israel could learn it, so that a second Holocaust couldn't happen. So unlike every other martial art I've ever done, which has thousands of years of history and perfection of motion as a fundamental core, Krav Maga is pure self-defense fighting power. And it is probably the most lethal martial art I've ever studied. And that was when I was at my apex of I trained 2 hours a day every single day. I also like to joke that when Molly and I first met, I still had a 6-pack, and then I've not had one since, so it was false advertising.
Oh, well, welcome to the keg. This is a pony keg somewhere in there. That's the thing about Krav Maga too. I think some of the other martial arts have been around so long that there is a legitimate art form part, that it's exercise and practice and form, and then there's competition, which is its own. There's rules, right? Like there's no rules on the street, and there's rules of competition. And like, 20 years ago, there was a great little, it came to mind before when you were talking about, you weren't interested in the competition part. You were interested in the discipline and the form and the self-defense part. And it was that the show was about like America's #1 like karate form kid at the time. And he's a white kid. He was like 6 feet tall, and he's like in high school, and he's like the #1 in the country at doing forms. And in the course of the documentary, they decided to put him into the sparring, and he got hit in the face once. I was like, nope, not for me. This is, the form was great. He could do very acrobatic, whatever, and getting hit in the face was such a different experience for the kid. That wasn't part of his experience in whatever form he was in before. Was not the sparring, getting hit in the face. And it was just like, yeah, you look perfect, but there's a whole different element when you actually get hit in the face. And then there's a whole different element when it's...
There is the best practical joke I've ever played was when I was training Krav. There's a guy by the name of Hunter whose thighs were this big around. Oh, let me do it like this so it's easier to see. Like massive tree trunk man. And basically every Krav place you go to, as far in my experience, there's also going to be somebody that's teaching you some Brazilian jiu-jitsu, because in Krav, the only ground stuff you learn is how to keep somebody away so you can get back up. But knowing some Brazilian jiu-jitsu goes pretty well with it and is worthwhile. And so he was the one who ran the BJJ class. And at one point, he flips me over and pops me square in the nose with his massive knee. I felt like basically my entire face get hit with his knee, and I just start gushing blood. And surprisingly, the crook in my nose is all natural. That never had my nose broken. But so it's bleeding, and we're almost at the end anyway. So I stop it up and I go home, and it's just I just have the only other sign is I have a little cut on the top of my nose. But I'm like, you know what? I got to do something with this. When am I ever going to have the opportunity? And so I got some gauze and some tape and some ketchup, and I did it smart, right? I did the ketchup the day before I was going to go in next, so it would brown and dry and look really like nasty. I'd really busted up my nose because I was like this the whole time leaving, so he never saw my nose. And so I show up the next day, and he sees me. He's like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, Hunter, you really messed up my nose." And he's like, "Are you kidding me?" And I was like, "Do you want to see?" And he was like, "Yeah." And then I reveal, and it's nothing. And the look on his face when I said, "You really messed up my nose," in contrast with actually seeing it just like a little cut, was phenomenal.
Awesome. The man, wow, we've gone an hour, sir. So let's see.
This is the problem with me is I can endlessly talk about myself.
So someone earlier asked about VTT release. So we don't advance release VTT. Like we don't keep it until it's done. When it's done, we release it. So we generally don't get timelines for VTT releases. That's all the VTT team. They can move and shake as they want to. Obviously, Pathfinder is a priority. So yeah, sorry, no detail on that. But basically, they can't begin until the final files are done with the printer, and they are now, yes, I believe, for that product line. So they're just getting started. So it will not be next week. It will not be next month. But it is hopefully coinciding with soon after the books get here, kind of thing. So sorry, I can't give you a more definitive date on that, but. With Donald, a lot of questions about Pathfinder Savage World. I mean, like Pathfinder Savage World is also like my big entry into the company. So I've got some fond memories there too.
I just recently, because I realized now I was in North Carolina a few weeks ago visiting my mom, and I forgot to bring. You can see, look, there's a little smudge stick got to this book too. She doesn't teeth anymore, but when we got her when she was a kitten, so she was teething. But I just recently got the elusive Mark. Why do I keep saying Mark Barbeau? It's the R Barbeau that keeps screwing me. So I got Mike to sign it, and Shane and Simon are easy, but they were there anyway. So I got to get Clint, because it was my first. ETU technically came out first because it was done, and it got to the printer, and it was these two massive box sets took a little bit of a while to get everything sorted. But Pathfinder was the first real book I worked on. So I got to get Clint, which shouldn't be too difficult, and then Carl Kiesler and Chris Warner. And I think Chris Warner is going to be the hardest because I don't know that he goes to a lot of conventions. I think Carl typically goes because Carl and Chris are both the two halves of Doghouse Rules. And I think Carl tends to go to the conventions for them. So we'll have to see if I can work something out.
Well, I think Carl will be at Gamehole Con, so I think that'll be the good opportunity to bring it to Gamehole Con. And we'll see about Warner. Florida is nice. I've been trying to get
just have to ship.
Right, you can ship it, or we can just maybe we'll finally get the Savage Cruise up and running again, and we'll do it out of Florida so Chris can join us. So,
listen, I was gonna get the second best shape of my life was the lead up to the Savage Cruise, because I wanted to be the only nerd there with a 6-pack, and I was very close. And then we canceled it, and now the very out of shape Donald you see in front of you today is what you got.
That's okay. You can go on the Chris Landauer has diabetes diet and lose 60 pounds, and then you'll be fine. I don't think you'd weigh anything if you lost 60 pounds. You're already pretty slim dude. So don't get diabetes. It's not good. So yeah. Anyways, guys, we're right, noted. Check. Yeah, I wasn't planning on it. Wasn't really high on my priority list. Thanks for the advice, though. I guess I should open like a not advice column where it's just like all the stupid things Landauer recommends. Like, don't do any of these things. Not recommended.
Well, so I think if you're fine with it, Chris, I've got time, so I can go a little bit over because we spent so much time that I feel like we should talk about some of the stuff that's upcoming.
Oh yeah.
Just to whet the appetites.
Let's do it. Okay. So
okay,
what secrets can you reveal? We'll mute Jody. She can't complain.
So I'll just run through because I wrote down in preparation kind of what are the things that I've been working on this week. And I'll just share it so people kind of know what does a week for me look like. / it'll give you some cool stuff. So I did a bunch of work with some of our translators this week. So if you're in Germany and you're waiting for some German books, Ulysses might have in the near future a release that you're going to be pretty happy with. Then the Legend of Ghost Mountain adversary cards, I gave those a read through. Daryl did a great job on them. I just punched up some text here and there and added some little extra hooks with the players. So those are probably going to go out sometime next week. Probably, maybe. No promises. We already talked about the Doomguard playtest, so that's good. If there's any retailers watching, get ready for the Fantasy Companion. Because that's going to have the retail blast soon because I was working on the graphics for that. And then Rifts folks, knock on wood, there maybe somebody worked on some survey forms for some Thousand Islands stuff that might be very close on the horizon. And, knock on wood that I think we're about a third was the last report we got from the web team on the number of orders that have been resolved. Let me tell you, folks, literally a person has to go through and fix these orders by hand. There's something happened. We're still not 100% sure because it didn't happen at Ghost Mountain, right? Yeah. People got their Ghost Mountain orders, no problem. So we do apologize for the delays and the issues with Rifts, but it's kind of a freak accident. Not kind of like it's software, right? Freak accidents happen all the time. Geez, if you saw it, anybody who's worked in tech will tell you that, oh my goodness, it's a wonder anything works. Video games especially. And there's a joke in video game circles: don't remove the banana under the level because when you do, it crashes the game. And we don't know why the banana's there.
We don't know why it's there, but just don't remove it. Well, it's true. Like we're getting timeout errors, right? And like the timeout errors, it's hard to debug code with timeout errors because you don't know like where along the code it executed to, and it's not completing the execution of the code. And so, like everybody's account is different if it timed out during the order delivery, and because we can't just flush and restart because we charged credit cards, and there's that would be a whole new mess to try to just like undo, redo, and so that's what we gifted. We gifted files we can gift, and we have more files ready for you guys. The development team has the files ready. The website's still a little touch and go, but we want to make sure everybody gets their order corrected on the round 1 before we move to round 2, and that's just polite. And
but we're lucky in that, and it's a credit to the web team. Whatever issue happened with Rifts didn't happen again. Right, Ghost Mountain went off without a hitch. When we do our next game changer, which I'm not gonna that is not something I'm going to spoil at this moment. I'll let you handle the announcement on that one. But when we do our next game changer, we don't anticipate any issues. And so here's the thing. The timeout errors might just be the server, like the actual physical device it's on. Big video game companies will make sure to buy when they're buying servers for when they're buying the physical server to host their digital servers, they will make sure to buy servers from different lots. Not, okay, we need 10 servers, buy the 10 servers that they have. No, make sure that these were manufactured at different times because there might be some problem in the server that causes them to go down, and we don't want all 10 servers to have the same defect from the same lot. Right. It might be some bit of code that got updated. Amazon Web Services is 90% of the internet. Did they update something? Did WooCommerce update something? It's such an impossibly difficult to understand mess. And I would like to say one thing on this, however frustrated anybody out there might be, we are definitely more frustrated.
Well, that's true.
We spend all day, every day trying to solve these problems. So for those of you that have been very gracious with us, thank you very much. And just, try and have some patience, especially the folks you email at info@peg Inc. They are not the ones that have the power to solve this stuff. So please be nice to them.
Yes, be nice. Yes. No, right. And there was one. So we had one that was like, sent a zinger to customer service. Like, customer service they don't deserve this. And it was kind of on the, here's the thing. They weren't even an original backer. They weren't someone who was like a November backer and was waiting, anticipating. They backed like 2 days before, and they're like, why are my files not here? And anyway, the point I want to get across.
I'm going to cut you off there, Landau.
Don't say. No, I think the issue is we want to make really good final files for you. We want the books in print to be great. We want the final PDFs to be great. Like, that's the ultimate promise we give you guys. And really everything before then is kind of gravy. It's kind of special. It's like, hey, we're willing to give you early access. And of course, it's not a one-way street. You give us feedback in return for this. So it is absolutely an exchange of awesomeness. But that is the thing, guys. It's like when we do have problems with the initial rollouts, appreciate that our goal is to make awesome print books, awesome final PDFs. That's what you're buying with your money. And everything before that is like, it's experimental. It's to make everything better. And we've been really good at getting you early files for a lot of the projects. It's just a little unreasonable to set a goal for ourselves that every pre-access, every part of the pre-order, because they are legit pre-orders, right? So like the stuff that the goal is the final goal. But when we screw up on the process, we don't want to throw anybody under the bus. Like, forgive us, give us a little grace. We really do want. I mean, here's the thing: we want you to have the files so we can start collating the feedback and improving them and making sure that the timelines stay tight and things like companions. Oh my God, so much feedback. So we appreciate you guys, and again, 99.995 you guys have been great. Don't be mean to customer service. So, other than that, any final?
Vinkel, I'm not telling. I'm not telling Vinkel. I said I wasn't going to say.
I think we teased that one a little bit, but our order might have changed. So here's the thing. So we want to make sure that the stuff at the print line is getting efficiently done. So I definitely know we've talked about Necessary Evil. I don't know. We're going to see where we are when the RIFs problem is fixed and how soon we think we can get the feedback and all that stuff for our pipeline to our printer. And we might make a change on what we are going to be crowdfunding next, just so we can clear those lines and make sure that we're not getting delays. Because for us, if it's a 2-week delay on giving you the first files, it's also a 2-week or more delay on getting the feedback done and those kind of things. And we don't want those to trickle down. So
did we, Clint?
No, I don't think we did. Yeah, so it is currently up in the air what we're going to be crowdfunding next. So
I see. This I don't know if is Clint trolling me, or is Clint just telling me information that I should know?
Right. I mean, we love Clint for this. Wait
a minute, Leather, you're the marketing director. If you're not sure, then Clint can't be sure.
Well, I mean, I'm hard at work getting stuff done for Clint, but it's like we're doing some cool stuff. So I just gotta say, so Clint is involved in heavily involved in one of the next crowd funders.
Okay,
and,
he is trolling.
We're going to be doing a charity stream for it. And so a cause close to a lot of our hearts is going to be a benefit from the charity stream. So that is awesome. So regardless of when that happens, we're doing some cool stuff behind the scenes prepping for it. And any other stuff that you're working on you want to spill the beans on, Don?
I don't think. I think that's all of the stuff that's relatively safe to talk about. I just gotta. Doomguard was a blast. If you folks are not waiting for Doomguard, if you're not signed up, I highly recommend it. It is going to be a great. It's. How did I describe it earlier? I think I said it's looking to be a great drop kick into the board game industry for us, right? It's going to be. I think we're going to have a noticeable splash when Doomguard goes out, because it is just a absolute riot of fun.
Yeah, the feedback comes in. So again, I haven't got to play it, but I get to see the feedback from the emails and the people who signed up for the list, and super positive at all the conventions. Mike has been doing the convention circuit, and I think one thing to note on this is, like, as a company, as an ethos, as players, everything gets play tested at Pinnacle. It is, I'm amazed at that. I mean, it is like game night is sacrosanct. Like I can bug Shane just about any other hour of the day, any other day, but game night is sacrosanct. It's like, nope, game night. And that just means not taking your call right now, not taking your text. Like, you know, like Shane and I have talked at like 5:30 in the morning. It's like can't sleep, and like we'll have a 2-hour conversation. Not game night. Game night is when they perfect the products. We go over things, test them to the limits. It's a serious part of things. So I think I really want to get this on stream. I was like, people need to see how much you guys really do the work and put all these new rules through the paces. And then Shane's just like, we can't because we're putting through the paces. And if we have like a binary choice to go A or B, if we let people know, there'll be a group that'll be adamantly mad that we didn't do A when we did B. And I'm like, I see where you're going, but I mean, on a design level, like obviously Donald loves Design Corner and design theory and philosophy. On that level, it's a fascinating thing to watch. I love watching Shane and Clint go at it when they have difference in rule opinions. It's like, oh, I can see both sides, and it's just great. Where you get to. So that's a really cool part of the company. I wish we could show you more, but I do agree that it would be like. I mean, people are still bummed about the shake and change. And so it's like, if we tell them about the other things we're considering. So
also as designers, we don't want you to see the thing that we're still kind of, working on and the corners aren't rounded. We want you to see the final thing. So.
Yeah. I'll be quit. That's a good idea. Maybe we might consider going back. So anyways, we will have to have Donald on the stream again because there was not enough time in an hour and 20 minutes to get into all the other good stuff that Donald does for our company. I mean, we barely talked about how cool the spreadsheets are. I know you might not appreciate it, but I appreciate deeply how awesome the spreadsheets are. And I think, let's see, JM DeFogie, I think will be our guest next week. And then I think we'll have Clint and Jody on when they get back from their big trip to Japan and talk all about Common Writer and all the other fun stuff that they got in Japan. But other than that, we will keep doing.
I almost said something that I shouldn't say. I almost spoiled something.
Okay, well, next time we have Donald on, we'll spoil some good stuff. So thank you guys for joining us for Office Hours. It's been fun. We like the format. It's kind of casual. So we'll see you same office hour time, same office hour day next week. And then I'm not sure if we've got a plan for Thursday or not, but Clint, there we go. Awesome. If Clint's next week, we'll play Clint next week. Oh, no. We'll see. I'll go look at the calendar. I was speaking off the cuff. I know
it really doesn't help that we don't know whether or not to take Clint seriously or not when he's posting in chat.
I know. He does this he gets me all the time in person. Like, I'm usually good at telling when people are sarcastic. Clint is a master of deadpan. So he'll just say something, and I'm like, oh, wow. And then just like an hour later, he looks at me and like cocks his eyebrow, and it's like, gotcha, Lando. I was like, God damn it, Clint. So, yeah, he does it all the time. So we'll see. Someone will be on next week, on next Friday. And then hopefully we'll do some more streams too. But other than that, folks, enjoy the weekend. Pathfinder folks, not Pathfinder folks, Rifts folks. Yes, Rifts folks. People are hard at work giving you those individually, so those will continue to be processed over the weekend, and hopefully we'll have good news early next week on the next round of stuff. So appreciate you, Donald. Thanks for coming on, showing us your tats and your cats, and next time we'll find something else fun to do. So cheers, folks. Have a great weekend. I've got to get a dog to a dog park so he doesn't eat my Memorial 5-year Deadlands poster anymore. So cheers, folks. Take it easy. Oh, and go play some